So today we're going to be reacting to Logan Paul's response to George Janko's podcast, where George Janko pretty much talks about how much of a terrible person Logan Paul was and how he was unfairly treated on Impulsive, which caused him to leave Impulsive. So before I show you Logan Paul's response, I just want to say that I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers, and if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. But yeah,
I had to start my own show because we're not making money on the show, and I'm getting pushed out.
You made money on the show.
I can show you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
All right, let's talk about this. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast to represent myself, so I'd like to clarify a few things that were said. As well as having his own credit card, all expenses related to the show were paid for, including all travel and lodging. Obviously, George's total reimbursement came out to $20,000, 317 cents. I'd love to see any books that show otherwise. Spending $120,000 a year to be on a show is a little confusing.
as much as I dislike Logan Paul and think he's an absolutely terrible person, he's kind of coming in with some evidence to back up what he's saying, and he's defending himself pretty well.
This is a guy who's sending us screenshots of $11 million a week that he's making.
This statement is so crazy that it's almost laughable. That would mean I'm making $572 million a year. I'm nowhere near that. What happened was Prime had a very successful month. I think we did like 60 to 70 million, and I sent it to our group chat because I was proud of the business. I was stoked to show the boys, and I think George maybe misinterpreted that as like my personal income.
The show.
So this might be a bit off topic, but like, who genuinely is out here buying so much Prime like this? Because every store I go to, like my Walmart and shit, the Prime they sell is always stocked up. Like, it feels like no one is buying them. So I'm just confused who is actually buying these.
Hit rock bottom, and we weren't getting paid. I was getting paid $5,000 a month.
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the
What
way,
would you say,
always
like,
grateful. I was always grateful
like
for
that?
it. Yeah, I don't like to talk about money.
I know he doesn't want to talk money. I know he bleeped it out, but George made $317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on Impulsive. The work requirements consisted of about 3 days a month, 3 hours each day, traveling the world, networking, and meeting some of the coolest people ever. It comes out to about $2,300 per hour, and he also had 10% equity of the entire show.
I mean, I'd love to make $300,000 in like 15 months just by talking. I feel like that's a pretty good job, I can't lie. But besides that, the main thing that I'm noticing right now is just how hard Logan Paul is going at this entire situation regarding the money. Like, as soon as George Janko talks about money in his podcast, Logan Paul is whipping out every receipt possible to prove what he's saying. It's kind of crazy.
Not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody called me when I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit. I'll touch on that in a second. But after he quit, I called him frequently. I reached out. I wanted to reconcile the friendship. I invited him to my birthday party and WrestleMania and even my ranch a few weeks later. He chose not to come. He also unfollowed all the people he mentioned on Instagram, which is maybe why they didn't call him. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but he still does not follow them to this day.
And then
I mean, you have to understand this from George's point of view. He probably felt betrayed because none of his friends from Impulsive, Logan Paul and Mike, actually defended him during the Bobby Lee incident where he felt uncomfortable at what Bobby Lee was doing to him. No one defended him during that, so he probably felt betrayed and just didn't want to talk to them anymore.
show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on Impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. He told me that I couldn't take Celsius.
So this is the big one. Making calls, trying to make it seem like I wanted to control his show is absolutely ridiculous. As you can see right here, I was like, hey, we got to get you Prime because I saw him drinking our competitor, and he told me to call him. He was filming my reaction to tell me he took a deal with a competitor. I told him, please don't film. Like, I'd like to talk about this. I hope you're joking, by the way. The truth is, I thought it was a bad look that my best friend and co-host took a brand deal with our competitor without consulting me, asking me, giving us even a chance to match it before he signed the deal, because the audience that he's building, at least at the time, on his own podcast was being funneled directly from the podcast that I was building with him. I said, hey dude, I understand you need to make money. The entire text is right here that I sent him after our conversation, because I did understand his position if he needed to make money, but I thought it was also a little odd because he did make $317,000 in 15 months.
I was low-key kind of on the right track when I said anytime George talked about money, Logan Paul would go extra hard trying to defend that, and I was kind of right, because anytime George talks about money, Logan Paul seems to be right there trying to defend what he did. And I kind of agree with what Logan Paul said at the end with the Celsius and Prime thing, because it would be a very bad look for Logan Paul and Prime if, Logan Paul's best friend and previous co-host was getting sponsored by Celsius, a direct competitor of Prime. Like, that would be a bad look.
Tell him I can't have him on Impulsive if he's going to take the deal with the competitor, but if after he makes the money he wants to come back to the podcast, he's more than welcome.
Hey man, where you're at, there's no room for you to grow. They won't let you grow. They will not let you grow.
I thought saying that to Mike was a little crazy. He's grown a lot. He has 2.7 million subscribers since we met. He's a multimillionaire, a best-selling author. I tried as much as I could to help him get into those positions, and it's not entirely because of me. Mike is a phenom in his own right, and he capitalized on the platform that I gave him, which is awesome. Just like George is doing now, but if that's not growth, like what is? In fact, I think people forget, like, I praised George for starting a podcast.
I still find it insane how Logan Paul has yet to mention the entire Bobby Lee situation and how unfairly George was treated during that, because come on, I feel like to me that's one of the most important things, because that's the entire reason as to why George left Impulsive, and is pretty much the main reason as to why George doesn't like you anymore. So I feel like that's a pretty important thing to talk about.
And I still do. There's a lot more. I'm not going to get into it, but this isn't to say, by the way, that I didn't up along the way. I did. I should not have mocked his beliefs. I apologize for that. I should have stuck up for him with Bobby Lee, and I definitely should have had his back more like a friend. There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but here we are. It saddens me that our story has unfolded this way. I wish him nothing but health, wealth, happiness, all the success that he wants, and I hope that one day we can sit down and have a relationship and a conversation.
So Logan Paul does respond to mocking George's beliefs, and he does apologize, and he also talks about the Bobby Lee incident, but like, it's so short, you know what I mean? For something that's the main reason as to why you're in this situation, right? George obviously felt betrayed during the Bobby Lee podcast, and that's one of the main reasons as to why he quit. And the fact that he's not addressing that as like the main point is just really concerning. Like, why does Logan Paul go so hard on anything financially related, but doesn't go hard on the main thing that caused the bad blood between George and himself? It just doesn't add up, you know what I mean? It just, why would you do that? But this is Logan Paul we're talking about, and everything he says is probably lies or misleading in some way. I mean, come on. This is the same guy who scammed his fan base. Like, come on. It doesn't get much worse, right? But yeah, if Logan Paul talked about the, you know, Bobby Lee situation more in depth, I think this would have been a good response. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed this video, a like and subscribe would be absolutely amazing. Peace out.